Welcome to the New Jersey Morning Show, Home Edition. I'm Lisa Marie Falvo.
And I'm Cara DeFalco. Good morning to you all. And we're home for good reason. The weather is not supposed to be in great shape today, so let's bring in meteorologist Mike Favetta and get a check of that Jersey forecast. Mike was just giving us a little preview because we're all kind of sitting here going, it's just raining. There was supposed to be ice. When is the ice coming? And you say it's on its way.
It's coming in. It's not COVID. That's why we're all home. That's a nice change of pace.
That is a nice change. I'll take it. I will take bad weather over bad health.
That's right. We wouldn't want to all have to go into the studio and then be stuck there because the freezing rain occurs during the course of this live show. We've been watching it on the radar picture all morning long. I'll show you that coming up. But it's also due to the drop in temperatures. Just in the last 2 hours, the temperatures have dropped more than 20 degrees. Earlier this morning, we had temperatures across New Jersey in the 50s, and they're still at 57 degrees right now in Ocean County. I'll show you that with our weather PC. I think you can bring it up, and we'll show you what the temperatures look like across New Jersey, but we see them dropping throughout the morning. So let's start off in northern New Jersey now. We're up in Sussex County. We've seen some freezing rain clinging to the treetops and the power lines, already accreting on some of the car tops. Head a little further south down towards central New Jersey, so, Route 78 is right about there, and you have temperatures much, much milder. In fact, they are as warm as the 50s right now if you head further south toward Toms River, for instance. So it's going to take a while for the rest of New Jersey to cool down, and some places south of I-95 really won't even see that freezing rain because it's either between 50 to 60 degrees right now. So much, much colder as we head through the rest of the day. But again, further north in northern sections of New Jersey, we're seeing that ice begin to work its way down as the colder weather drains down through the Hudson Valley into New Jersey, and that's why the freezing rain is a problem. Okay, so for today's weather graphics, you saw there, the temperatures started off in the 40s, but we're already at 37 in Newark, and that temperature will keep dropping. That will allow the freezing rain to continue, and that really takes us into today's headlines, where the icing through the rest of the day will be a concern. That's primarily going to be a concern for the lunchtime hour and the evening commute, as that freezing rain is forecast to continue. The trouble with this is that road crews were not able to pre-treat or brine the roads ahead of this icing event because of all of the rain. It would have simply washed away and it would have been a waste. So the crews will be on it this afternoon. You should make sure to give them some space as they treat the roadways for whatever type of evening commute we'll have. I can pretty much guarantee you it's going to be messy, considering it's also a Friday. And then as the cold weather returns for the weekend, we see a hard freeze with that very cold weather returning tonight, making for some slick and slippery spots into tomorrow on the untreated surfaces. And there's some rain on the way by Tuesday. We'll get to all that and more coming up with a check of your forecast, including Friday's forecast. The rest of today not looking so great. Stays pretty gray here around New Jersey with that wet weather sticking around and turning a little icy this afternoon. So be sure to walk like a penguin. What they say, center yourself, center your gravity, and take small steps if you're out and about today, because while the roads and the sidewalks may look simply wet, it could be icy. So we'll give you more details on the rest of that part of the forecast. And of course, the weekend weather. Hopefully there's some sunshine in there. All that and more coming up in just a few minutes.
Mike, thank you very much. And I know you have a cool weather story for us later today, right? Too another
I do.
Record.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Yes, we'll talk about that as well. Okay. Mike, thanks so much. We'll touch back in with Mike in just a little bit.
You have probably heard of New Jersey gym owner Ian Smith. He defied state mandates and kept his business, Atilis Gym in Belmar, open during the lockdown, despite over $1 million in fines from the state. Being arrested and having his business license pulled. Now, Ian has announced he is running for Congress. Ian Smith joins us live on the New Jersey Morning Show. Ian, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, last night you were on cable news's highest rated talk show, so we are so thrilled to be joined with you this morning. I know you've gotten tons of national headlines from your story, and now you're getting directly involved in politics. Why run for Congress? What do you hope to accomplish?
I think that we need a major cultural change in the way that we're approaching politics. We keep getting the same results, whether it's this guy or that guy, or whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans. The average American keeps losing in this equation. And I think that the solution is that we start electing less career politicians and more ordinary citizens. And I do believe that I am in an unusual circumstance that I can launch a formidable campaign for a federal office and lead the way in that charge that we've already seen started by people like Ed Durr and ordinary citizens who are stepping up in their school boards and their town councils and at every level, and I really want to push that forward, and I want to bring common sense back to politics. And I want to restore the idea that politics is a service to the community. It's not a lifelong career. It's not an opportunity to get rich, and it's not a step up into the elite rungs of society. You're supposed to be a public servant, and I think we need to see much more of that moving forward.
So, Ian, you mentioned Ed Durr, who is another great example of something like this. And you did mention a lot of those things that we do now associate with politics, getting rich, becoming famous. A lot of times, though, I think you do see people step into that Washington circle and they get caught up and sucked into all of that. What do you think? How would you do that differently, or how would you avoid getting, all those temptations, when people come to you behind closed doors and say, hey, I can do this for you, I can do that for you if you do this?
It's something that you're going to have to face that choice when it comes to you. But, I can say with utmost certainty that I have no interest in a career in politics. I would even be willing, if necessary, to sign a pledge that says I'm not going to run for more than X amount of terms. And I hope that I would be held to that standard, and there's a lot of other options. And I don't quite understand it, why politicians feel the need to reward themselves so greatly. As it stands, you get a pretty good package from being a politician. You get a good salary, you get good benefits. I don't understand why that's not enough for people. And when you're done your time in politics, if you do a good job, there will be plenty of opportunities on the other side waiting for you that you could resume as a citizen. So, I'm aware that I'm going to probably be tested, and I welcome that test because it's a measure of your character. To have the ability to say no, thank you. I don't need to make money the bad way. I can stay true to my values, and I could be an example for future politicians and future generations to step up and restore honesty back to the American political system.
Ian, let's take a step back. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we saw you in basically a staring contest with Governor Murphy. The state wanted to shut you down. You were hit with fees. You were just actually given probation just last week. So why do you think you were such a target in all of this?
Well, when Frank and I reopened, we did so very publicly. We certainly weren't planning on getting the media exposure that we did. But we knew that opening against the government mandates was going to bring some sort of punishment towards us. And we really had hope that the government would want to work with us. So, we put ourselves out there publicly in the off case that the government would come at us. And they did. And as they continued to escalate, we needed to show people what length these people would go to ensure your compliance, even in the absence of any credible data to shut you down. And I think it was the right message at the right time. The story caught fire, and a lot of businesses opened. A lot didn't have the media exposure. Some were successful. A lot of people opened and they didn't quite get the pushback that we got, and some opened and they received so much that they weren't able to stay open. I think it was because Frank and I were so vocal, and it was because we weren't willing to give Governor Murphy an inch. And I think we crossed paths with somebody who I honestly believe has a serious ego problem, and he couldn't come to terms with the fact that we had proved him wrong, and we still prove him wrong every day because our safety protocol that we put in place is far superior to the measures that he has taken, both with the general population and especially with the long-term care facilities, where we see such a tragedy with the exorbitant number of people who pass away as a result of bad policy.
So, Ian, you're just to kind of stay with your story for a minute and the gym, in your thought, then it's not that, COVID wasn't a problem or it was something to be ignored. It was just that you felt your policies and your safety protocols were superior to what the governor was asking people to do?
Absolutely. We shut down just like every other business. We certainly weren't happy about it, but we shut our doors in the beginning just like everybody because, quite honestly, we didn't know enough to confidently stay open. But when somebody comes along to your business, Frank and I are just two regular guys. We're not fancy, multiple locations. We're just two guys who threw everything they had at a failing business and turned it around. So when somebody came and said, "You're shutting down," we wanted to understand why, and we took that very seriously. So from day one, we just immersed ourselves in as much of the politics and of the science as we possibly could, because we wanted to understand why somebody had come into our lives and said, "You can't earn money," but at the same time was making allowances for big multi-million and multi-billion-dollar corporations to sort of have free reign. So in the process of trying to understand that, we understood the science to a level that most people weren't looking at, because the mainstream media, obviously, it doesn't, not only does it not have the time, but I don't think it has the motivation to dive deep into some of this stuff. So when we reopened very confidently, because it wasn't about dismissing COVID as something that wasn't real or wasn't a threat. My business partner, Frank, lost his mother to COVID. So we did take this very, very seriously, but we saw the damage that was being done as a result of the one track mind lockdown and vaccine policy, where the government wasn't looking at other options. Public health isn't a one-dimensional entity. There were people who were still suffering, people that suffer from addiction, depression, people that need to be in the gym for other health reasons. And we took a common sense approach, and we truly believe our program was superior, and it's proven to be so to this day. It's something that we still do our safety protocol. Most of the stuff that we put into place originally was so far above and beyond what any business in the country was required to do. But we were willing to do it because we wanted to keep our people safe. We've spent tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, equipping our facility over the past 2 years to be the safest place possible. And it shows. As of yesterday, we had 350,691 visits to our facility with a full contact tracing system that anybody can look back on. And we haven't had a single COVID outbreak. So it was about keeping people safe, and it was about presenting a solution to a problem that government just wasn't fixing. They just kept telling us to wait. They weren't providing any real, tangible, and workable solutions. It was just sit down, be quiet, and wait. And when you have bills to pay, you can only do that for so long.
Right. Ian, I know you have to run, but we just want to throw one more question at you. So you were running for Congress, you were running as a Republican. What has been the reaction from the Republican Party to your announcement? And then also, do you feel like, kind of going back to that pressures question of politics, do you feel like you're going to be somebody who falls completely in the party line, or are you going to be somebody who says, you know what, on that particular note, no, I disagree with you, regardless of us in a shared party?
As far as the people go, there's a ton of excitement throughout the state, and not only throughout the state, but throughout the country as far as voters. I won't be taking part in the established party convention system, so I'm not even going to campaign for the line. We're going to run off the line with our own slate of candidates, because at the end of the day, I'm not an establishment candidate. And while I have no problems with the established GOP here in New Jersey, I think they do great work. There's a lot that I differ from them, and that's okay, But I don't need to compete within their system to get the support of the people, because that's what truly matters to me. It's not about the establishment and what they think, and I think that's part of the problem that we have today is we're getting candidates that are picked for us because they're getting the head nod from big donors or from county chairs, when in reality this is a people powered movement. So we're going to leverage the exposure that we have and the name that we have and the track record that we have to make a grassroots movement, and we'll move forward with that. And at the end of the day, I do fall under the blanket of Republican, but I certainly tend to be a lot more libertarian. I am in favor of a smaller government. I think that government's primary role is to protect the rights of citizens. I do not believe that the government has the right to come into our lives and to mandate medical treatments or to infringe upon our liberties. The government is there for our protection and our protection of our rights. So there are some Republicans who favor a very, very big government. So I would not be one of them. But I believe there is a compromise to be reached, not only within the Republican Party, but within the political spectrum altogether. And I think that place lies much closer to the middle.
Yeah. The common sense
Yes.
middle. Ian Smith, thank you so much. You have over 400,000 Instagram followers that agree with you. And I see that audience growing even more. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, guys.
You too.
Thank you. You too.
Very interesting stuff, Karen.
Very interesting stuff. I'm so glad he made some time for us today, and hopefully we can have him back on as his campaign goes forward. I'm so glad that he mentioned Ed Dirk, because I think right here in New Jersey we have that example of I don't want to say the no name because that puts the other person down, but that average Joe kind of guy winning a huge election. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes next.
And I think politics has become so polarizing on either side of the aisle that, Ian said, a lot of people are being pushed to that middle, because I think a lot of us have a lot more in common than we think we do.
Then we don't. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And he said, it's almost become a dirty word in politics, compromise. And it was like, hey, there's a new concept we should bring back.
Yeah. So it's a power grab, what he was saying before too about, why isn't just holding office enough? Like, why do you need to get super rich off of it and have all of this extra power?
Right. Right.
That's
those
unfortunately
closed door deals
become, and people I think have lost sight of what's important, which is the people. And that's why I think you see the average Joe, like you said, Edward Durr himself, Ian Smith, taking the time to run for office. So it's definitely changing the game, all this COVID stuff.
Absolutely. It's changing everything. Speaking of things that were changing, New Jersey's Supreme Court has ruled against Republicans challenging New Jersey's new congressional district map, which was just changed. The map was drawn by the Democratic members of the Redistricting Commission and selected after the tiebreaker commissioner, John Wallace, voted in favor. Now, Republicans say the map was an unfair gerrymander. The court order means the map will apply for the next decade until 2030, the federal census, and a new map is then drawn. So Republicans wanted to change it a bit. The Democrats ultimately voted and said it was just fine.
Yeah, gerrymandering. We need Laura Jones to come on.
We do need Laura Jones. I'm like, I need the definition of these words and what it means for real people.
Exactly. Because right now, to me, it reads like a math problem. I'm not very good at that. So.
Yes, neither am I.
That's why we talk for a living.
Exactly.
Anyway, as the Omicron surge dies down, towns across the state are backing away from indoor mask mandates. This week, including Asbury Park, Princeton, and New Brunswick, ended the mandates. Newark and Montclair, however, both extended the mandates into March.
And all that is tough because, Asbury Park, Princeton, and New Brunswick are a little bit distant from one another. Newark and Montclair are not far from one another. And at least they did agree. But I do feel like, if you go from Montclair even to Little Falls or Verona or Caldwell, even just to go out to a restaurant, it's like, do I need to bring the mask? Do I not? I've got like 30 of them in my purse, like tissues. I'm like, do I need this or no?
It's getting, it's just
getting ridiculous.
Too much.
So Governor Murphy has nominated his former chief counsel as New Jersey's next attorney general. Matt Platkin will replace acting attorney general Andrew Bruck, who's been filling the role since former AG Gerber Gruwall left to work at the SEC.
As I look toward the upcoming 4 years and the challenges that lay ahead, I will once again look to the Attorney General to stand up for our New Jersey values and to keep the office and our state moving forward. To meet this challenge, it is my honor and pleasure to nominate Matt Platkin to serve as the 62nd Attorney General of the state of New Jersey.
As Attorney General, my highest priority will always be keeping our residents safe. This means, in particular right now, bringing all necessary resources to bear to prevent violent crime.
So Platkin lives with his family in Montclair. He grew up in Florham Park. Now, he does have to be confirmed by New Jersey lawmakers, but I believe he's going to be working in an acting capacity until then.
I wonder if myself and the new attorney general went to the same high school. East Hanover and Florham Park go to high school together.
Share a school. We're gonna have.
As that was playing, I was Googling to see if Hanover Park would come up, but hey, maybe he's a fellow Hornet. Very cool.
We'll have to look it up. Look it up.
The things you learn on this show. So
Exactly.
speaking of which, coming up next, we take a look at your weekend weather forecast and what you can expect on the roads this afternoon.
And you can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll keep you updated on who's going to be on the show. Be sure to check us out and click follow.
The American Lung Association invites you to join us outside in 2021 for our Fight for Air Climb events. Now more than ever, we need you in the fight for clean air and healthy lungs. Let's go outside and climb, because every step counts. Visit us at lung.org.
Watch OSDIA interviews live every Sunday night at 8 p.m. and celebrate the best of Italian American culture. Each week, we will feature an exclusive interview with a prominent Italian American from around the country. You can watch OSDIA interviews live on Optimum 61, Verizon 530, or stream live from anywhere on News12.plus. For more on Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America, visit osaya.org and follow along on social media.
Welcome back to the New Jersey Morning Show. Let's take a look at your Jersey headline. State Senator Edward Durr has introduced a bill in Trenton to ban the use of vaccine passports in New Jersey. Now, if passed, that bill would prevent people or entities from requesting or requiring personal health information. And the number of people who donated an organ or tissue in New Jersey reached an all-time high last year. According to the NJ Sharing Network, the nonprofit organization responsible for recovery of organs and tissues, 233 individuals gave the gift of life last year.
That's unbelievable.
Especially with a blood shortage. So it's weird, like organs and tissues, but not blood.
Yeah, very odd. The state Supreme Court has declined to hear an appeal from Jersey City about a deal to pay city employees double during states of emergency. The decision stems from a March 2018 storm. And this is a sad story. Milltown Mel, a weather predicting groundhog, died last Sunday just before his big day, Groundhog's Day. Milltown had to cancel their annual event. Lucky for New Jersey, we have meteorologist Mike Favetta. So we have to ask him if he saw his shadow. And speaking of which, here is Mike with his forecast. Do we have Mike?
There
I don't know. Do ghosts of groundhogs create shadows? It's kind of a thing. I mean, once you cross that Rainbow Bridge, is there any shadow coming back? I don't know. I had to ask my students in class on Wednesday. I said, did anybody know if the groundhog saw a shadow or not? And then one actually told me the story about Milltown Mel dying.
Aww.
So yeah.
The one at Turtleback Zoo did not. I think all the New Jersey groundhogs said early spring. Puxatony Phil said more winter. So, and I think Staten Island Chuck also said winter. So apparently only in New Jersey is the weather improving. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Well, if you live south of 78 this morning, you actually are going to have pretty favorable weather today. But it's the icing that is a big concern, especially way up in Sussex County, where there has been some freezing rain all through this morning. And that's what you see there shown up in pink. So this is the radar map of New Jersey. We'll zoom on up here toward the northernmost section. And this flash of pink that you see here, which I will actually circle in pink, shows that freezing rain working in through sections of Vernon, in through West Milford, and really approaching 287. Here's 287 right here. So anticipate that throughout the course of the morning, it does get very slippery as that colder air works its way southward. The rest of New Jersey hasn't seen anything in the way of freezing rain, just plain old rain. But there's this interesting feature working here through the coast that's causing a marine warning in gusts of over 45, near 50 miles per hour there for the shore towns due to this front pushing on through. Speaking of all of the cold that we had, let's go over to our weather graphics because we had a pretty bad blizzard just just over the weekend. If you remember, Saturday morning, we started off with the snow, and that snow lasted all throughout the afternoon. And some places in New Jersey received more than 18 inches of snow. 19 inches was the top report over in Egg Harbor Township. Absecon, that town you pass through on the way to Atlantic City, went to 18.5 4.5 inches. Manasquan, Point Pleasant Beach, and even Toms River coming in with some very high totals. And the Atlantic City Airport had the snowiest January on record at nearly 3 feet of snow. And remember, they got hit with storm after storm after storm, one after the next in January. So now for the rest of the day here throughout New Jersey, we'll see the ice continue north of Route 78. It's going to be very gusty, and with the next few days, we'll take a look at that 3-day forecast. The temperatures stay cold. We will see temperatures drop tonight into the lower 20s. That means not only a cold start tomorrow, but a refreezing across most of the untreated surfaces, kind of locking in that ice today that forms across the northern half of the state this afternoon. Then going into Sunday and Monday, a little bit more in the way of some freezing rain, freezing temperatures likely, but the sunshine that's out should help to melt some of that away. And of course, that sun doing some great things for us by Tuesday and Wednesday because the thaw will continue. So I think we get a little bit of a milder trend going into next week, and I'll show you that coming up on the 7-day forecast. Now that we're exiting the coldest part of our winter season, looks to be very pleasant going forward into the next few weeks in February. Hope we can keep it that way at least with some nicer weather upcoming. We've got more details on that 7-day coming up in a few minutes.
Thanks, Mike. Hey, stick around for these next couple stories if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah. So, Mike, we know you're planning a wedding, and
yes, I am.
What would you think about a small cheesy wedding, possibly at a Brooklyn pizzeria?
A cheesy wedding? What do you mean? A pizza wedding? Is that what you're getting at?
Wait, listen to this. So there's a Brooklyn pizzeria. They have decided that they are going to be a pop-up wedding chapel for Valentine's Day. They're going to be officiating 14 micro weddings. Linda Street Pizzeria in Williamsburg is featuring 10-minute weddings, which does include photos, but strangely does not include pizza, which I think is weird because what better way to celebrate love than with dough and tomato and cheese?
Sure. I mean, we're thinking of that for the cocktail hour, some little brick oven pizzas. So does
little
that
brick
count?
oven pizza?
I
think that's okay.
We'd like to incorporate that as part of the main deal.
As part of the celebration.
Yes.
You know what you could also do, Mike?
Let's
They
hear it.
have the food trucks, like the traveling wood burning.
That's the after
so you
party.
could actually have the food truck set up outside as your guests leave.
That's the after party. You stop giving away all my secrets, Lisa Marie.
Oh man. Well, Lord knows we know enough food trucks and chefs on this show that we could probably fully cater this thing like nothing else.
We will formulate a list.
All right, so this is the other question for you guys. So getting a Valentine's Day gift for your significant other, generally pretty traditional. But gifts are being marketed now for kids, parents, coworkers. Do you guys buy Valentine's Day gifts for your parents or other people in your life besides your significant other?
No.
No?
I mean, I will for Liana.
I was going to say, when I was a small child, my parents bought us Valentine. I mean, just candies or whatever, nothing crazy, a little card.
Yeah, no.
And I'll probably send my niece a card, but not a gift.
No, that just kind of goes to show it's become from a holy feast day of a saint to more of a commercialization, and we don't need to buy more stuff.
No, definitely not.
I do always push, though, for Cucina stuff, I always try to push, family meals or desserts that you can do with the kid, because I do think you have to acknowledge, either not everybody has a significant other and Valentine's Day is a hard day for them, or you are celebrating as a family. Lisa, you guys, you've got your husband, you've got your baby, you're not leaving her out altogether.
No. I've been on Valentine's Day. It's the most annoying holiday, I have to say, because I've been on both sides of the aisle where I've been blissfully happy and then absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
And it brings out those polarizing emotions. So maybe we should just do away with it. We don't need it.
It can go back to being a church day. I'm very okay with that. All right, Mike, I think we're going to let you go and, but think about what we're going to do for the wedding.
Okay.
Well, Mike might want to stay if he wants to, because speaking of gifts, the price of everything is up, by the way. And maybe this is for wedding planning. Take heed. A dozen roses costs $12.42, a 22% increase from last year. Crazy. Diamonds are 15% more expensive, but gold is down 1% and silver is down 10%. A 12-ounce box of assorted chocolates now costs $11.99, a 9% increase from last year. And filet mignon is 154%.
Wow.
154%
no.
more expensive than last year.
So you're
The
telling
cost
me
per
the
pound is now
Peterloo.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say with the steak dinner, the steak dinner for Valentine's Day is going to be that much more expensive this year.
Yep.
Oof,
That's
rough.
crazy. The
That's
cost per
rough.
pound is now a whopping $34.21. Think of the markups on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And lobster is also more expensive than last year. With
in case you thought you were doing surf and turf for dinner.
Yeah, so forget that. It's gonna be like a $500 meal with a $25% price increase. Myers said so. That's insane.
Yeah.
A lot of these places that we're seeing and we're looking at to book this wedding in 18 months will not commit to a seafood price, saying you can sign a contract, but the price may go up in the next 18 months for seafood because we don't know what the market's going to be like.
Yeah.
Could you imagine signing a contract and say, oh, we're going to charge you double now for every guest?
So maybe we just avoid the raw bar.
Or look for venues that commit to a price.
Or that Lisa and I are fans of the pizza truck. I say just go with that.
Okay.
You can't go wrong.
We'll discuss more of this off. I don't want to give everything away because I know my phone's going to start getting texts from Stephanie.
We're going to get Mike in trouble with that. Stop telling them what we're planning. Sorry, Steph. We're so sorry. We know. Okay. We'll let it go.
You know what I've seen at weddings too? The fresh mozzarella man.
I got a guy, Mike.
Okay, we can't talk anymore. All right.
We need to let Mike go before
Mike needs to go.
He's going to be broken up before he gets married. If we
before Valentine's Day becomes miserable for him.
Yes.
Oh, no. Never going to happen. I'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, Mike.
We do have one more story. If you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, like everything else, the price is going up. There will be a $20 increase in the annual subscription from $11.19 to $139. Amazon cites a rise in wages and transportation costs as the reason for the price hike.
I just think, so many people, because we were talking about all the food stuff before and the gifts for Valentine's Day, there's nothing to be done, on the receiving end. Like if you're a restaurant and that's what they're charging you for lobster or filet mignon, you have no choice but to pass that on to the customer. You can't eat 154% increase. You just can't.
No, it's not fair so they're in a quandary. What are you going to do? And there was a study I think we talked about last week that, restaurant reservations in cities like New York are so down. So it's going to be interesting how they navigate it.
Absolutely. All right. I think we might have beaten this horse to death at this point. But coming up next, we are talking New Jersey sports with Anthony Paradiso. Lots of good juicy Giants stories to talk about from Jersey Sporting News. So we'll have that coming up in just a bit.
Yes, and you can connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find out who's going to be on the show, watch past clips, and much more. Check us out and click follow.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
Swing the hip.
Oh boy, they weren't kidding.
You're looking for a gold crown?
Sure. So you say you're helping people through. How are you doing that?
Welcome back to the New Jersey Morning Show.
And let's bring back in meteorologist Mike Favetta. Hopefully he is still engaged after our previous conversation.
Oh, we're good. We're good.
You're good? We're good. Okay.
Yeah, we're good. I'm getting things ready. It's been a busy morning here. We've had
It has
the
been a
ice
busy morning.
falling.
I was going to say that ice is coming.
The ice is coming. It's working its way down through New Jersey, and it's going to cause some issues for later on this afternoon into tonight. However, we're going to go right to the weather graphics because I want to show you the improvement in the forecast that's headed in our way for the weekend. Let's head over to the weekend weather because the weekend looks very pleasant. With our weekend forecast starting off nice and dry and sunny, it's going to stay cold early tomorrow morning. And with that weekend weather staying sunny throughout Sunday, even though temperatures will start off below the freezing mark and stay in the freezing mark throughout Morristown and Newark, even Belmar only hits a high of 29 degrees tomorrow. Stays very chilly, even in through the rest of the Saturday time frame. Now, by Sunday, you see there's a little bit of an improvement. We'll likely see Belmar and Trenton climb back above the freezing mark, even Camden and Atlantic City, with a milder trend in the next few days. That's a good sign of things to come because I think we'll see the continued melting after all of the nearly 2 feet of snow that fell down the shore. Places along the Jersey Shore will warm up a little bit faster, and you can see more of that on the 7-day forecast with highs that will climb back into the upper 40s and perhaps even some low 50s there a few days, especially later on in the week. So by this weekend, it stays really chilly tonight, gets down into the teens for Sunday morning. So yeah, it's going to be cold again this weekend, but not impossible to get out and maybe get your weekend on the way because of all the sunshine, helping to keep the roads nice and dry with that continued melting. Then going into Monday and Tuesday, we see that warm up, a little bit of a rain chance on Tuesday afternoon, and then a nice calmer trend with average temperatures, dare I say, that go into Wednesday and Thursday. So beyond this afternoon's mess, it turns brighter next week, and we have a lot of sunshine on tap, with the exception of that little bit of rain by Tuesday, but decent weather ahead compared to all of the, wintry conditions we've had around New Jersey. A nice calm period for a change that takes us into next week. We look forward to that, and we look forward to maybe some more records being broken for some warmth. Need to warm things up around here. Coming up, I will tell you about a temperature record which was re-broken, if you will, when the New Jersey climate experts looked at it, reanalyzed the data, actually changed some weather history regarding a snowstorm back in the turn of the century here in New Jersey. I'll give you those details coming up in just a few minutes.
We love our meteorology lessons, Mike.
It's coming.
I love it. I can't wait. All right, Mike, thanks so much. We'll check back in with you in just a little bit.
Thanks, Mike. So the sports world is buzzing over the bombshell allegations former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores brought up against the NFL and locally the New York Giants. Joining us now to break it all down for us is Anthony Paradiso of Jersey Sporting News. Anthony, good morning. How are you?
Uh-oh, Anthony, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
But he can hear us.
Can you hear me?
There he is.
We have audio. Great.
All right, just the mute button there got me.
It's okay. Good morning. So, after the hiring of head coach Brian Daboll, the Giants got hit with a Mack truck. So please break it down for us.
Yeah, so Brian Flores is filing a class action lawsuit, which means that it can involve other people against the NFL, claiming that teams gave him sham interviews like the Giants and the Denver Broncos, and that they incentivized losses for his teams. One big incendiary claim is that when he was head coach of the Dolphins in 2019, the owner, Stephen Ross, offered him $100,000 in bonuses for each loss that he would have that season in order to tank and hopefully get the number one pick in the draft. And guess who ended up being the number one pick in the draft? Joe Burrow, who's now going to the Super Bowl with the Bengals. So this is a pretty big lawsuit here. He's also claiming that essentially the Rooney Rule doesn't work. The Rooney Rule was enacted in 2003, and it's a law that says that teams have to interview ethnic minorities, racial minorities for head coaching and other jobs like coordinators, quarterbacks, coach, stuff like that. So that's what's going on. And I think that if you look at the stats regarding black coaches in the NFL, before Flores was fired, only 5 out of 32 NFL teams had a black head coach. there's other numbers like since 1963, 116 white coaches have been hired and only about 20 black coaches. There's another stat that says around 11% of head coaching vacancies in the NFL since the Rooney Rule has been enacted 20 years ago have been African Americans. So it's pretty stark, I would say.
Yes, I mean it definitely is, and it definitely begs question. But and listen, I mean I'm transparent enough to share, and you all know about my affiliation with the New York Giants. I mean, in the well over a decade of working with them, I mean I have never seen anything. And when you look at the timeline of how it all went down, I mean the Giants I think were in the right in how they conducted their head coach search. I mean, on this show last week, we were debating which Brian was it going to be. Anthony, you thought DeBall. I actually thought Flores because I thought that he had a shot. And I think it was just all about, the Bills GM, the former Bills assistant GM is now the Giants GM in Joe Shane. He brought his guy over. There's nothing wrong with that if you have something in mind. I don't think race plays a role in that. But, for Brian to go scorched earth, Brian Flores to go scorched earth on the Giants, on the Broncos, I don't know if he's ever going to get another NFL coaching job. But to me, the biggest story, I think, is the Dolphins. To throw games. I mean, that's been a question for decades in the NFL and all major sports. Are these games being thrown for the gamblers, for higher draft picks? That is going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up great points. It's going to be difficult for him to prove that the Giants, didn't act in good faith in the hiring process for their head coach. But he does have a chance of proving that the Dolphins owner was up to no good there. So we'll see what happens there. I think that's a bombshell claim that he made against the Dolphins owner. And honestly, if you look at it, he was there 3 seasons and he went 10-6 in 2020, which is the pandemic year. And we're still in the pandemic, but that was the year where it had just begun. He went 10-6 and he still got fired after a season this year where, he went 7-9 and maybe he didn't have the best players to work with.
Listen, I think he listen, we were all shocked when he got fired. Again, I don't think race plays a role in that. I think something seriously went wrong in the communication down there. But if I'm a lawyer defending the Dolphins, I'm asking him, well, then when Ross approached you, if your integrity was being attacked in such a way, why didn't you just leave? You stayed and you coached for 2 more years, and now you're bringing this up. So interesting. Kara, I know you want to jump in.
I was just going to say, I only to go back to, Lisa, what you said that, he went scorched earth and he's not going to be able to find another job. I want Anthony's opinion on this. I read something the other day that basically said he is doing what Colin Kaepernick did, where he is sacrificing his own career to bring light and attention to something. And I've also recently read something that said, we kind of almost have an obligation to, at least to a degree, believe people when they say that that's their experience, just that it wasn't necessarily our experience.
Yes.
But, that may be his experience. He certainly feels that way strongly enough that he brought this lawsuit. So, but Anthony, do you kind of view him in the same vein as Kaepernick, as somebody who's basically sacrificing his career to bring light and attention to some dark spots in the NFL?
Well, not totally. I think that he is trying to bring attention to the way head coaches are treated and the lack thereof of minority coaches in the NFL. I mean, there were only 5 before in 2021 before he got fired. And now I believe there's only Mike Tomlin is the only African-American head coach, and Ron Rivera and Robert Saleh would be considered the other minority coaches. So there's only 3 out of 32. So I think he is. So the question is this completely like he's trying to shed light on this? Well, he does have some claims, against the Dolphins, which we'll see how they play out. These are like, regardless of race, he should not have been treated like this. And this is about the integrity of competition. So I think from the Dolphins standpoint and what happened there when Flores was a head coach, it's not about race. but as regards to the entire NFL and how they hire head coaches, it is.
All right. Well, we could spend all day talking to you about this, and I know I have spent many a day since this all broke out just debating about it with my fellow sports fans, but we have to let you go. Anthony, Thank you so much. Jersey Sporting News. We'll have you back on next week to talk Super Bowl and more local New Jersey sports, so can't wait for some good news.
All right, sounds good. I want your picks next week, all right?
All right.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Anthony. All right, let's bring back meteorologist Mike Favetta with your Jersey forecast, and he does have that record-changing story for us.
Record-changing story, yeah. So way back in the day, we're talking the 1930s, there was a big snowstorm, and it went down in weather history, but there were some climate investigators, if you will, that were part of New Jersey that were actually able to go back, look up the Asbury Park Press newspaper articles and reclassify that storm as, wait a minute, the records aren't what they show based on this information. And so there's a new weather record that came through. I had the information, the computer kind of took a little vacation. I'm on lunch break apparently. So I was going to give you the dates, but we'll post that and give you more info maybe next week on the end.
I was going to say, I have your email that you sent to us this morning, I think.
Thank you, but we'll get to that.
It's
ice. It's all about the ice today, right?
Yeah.
Very slick, very slippery, and it really gets bad this afternoon because early this morning there was simply rain across most of New Jersey, but now the ice is inching its way south. Started up in Sussex County, working its way through Morris County and Bergen and Passaic County, and will likely stop at the I-78 border. So this evening's commute, very slick and slippery. Even getting around this afternoon gets quite cold. It gets chilly tonight. You see that with the 7-day forecast. Temperatures get really cold going into the overnight, down in the 20s tonight. So a hard refreeze is on tap. And then the teens by Sunday morning. The only saving grace is that we get sunshine both days, this afternoon, or rather tomorrow afternoon, and Sunday looking great. My brain is already on weekend mode, thinking it's Saturday. By Monday and Tuesday, sun is back, slightly milder weather, and we have 40s on the way for most of next week. So looking very pleasant. We'll take the liquid precip as it comes, but that's really the key here is that even though freezing rain falls as liquid, it looks like it's a plain rain happening. It actually freezes on contact, so that's what allows for that ice to create that glaze and makes it quite, well, treacherous driving around on the roads. It just takes a 1/100th of an inch of ice to make those roadways very slippery. And yet in some parts of New Jersey, we're forecasting 10 times that, 1/10 of an inch of ice throughout this afternoon. So careful on the roads and watch your step out and about this evening.
Mike, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We're going to let you go, but I did find your email. So your the original record was thought to be in Charlottesburg in 1915. They moved it to Long Branch in 1947.
All right, go Monmouth County. Way to do
there
it.
There you go. All right, Mike, you have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
By the way, I found out that I did not go to high school with the new Attorney General. He went to Madison High School, so they can claim him.
There you go. Okay.
There you go.
We're solving all the problems before the show ends.
Yes, exactly. Got to tidy it up here. Anyway, during the pandemic, many people began to pursue hobbies and passion projects. Some turned those small projects into total life changes. I think we both went through a little bit of that, right? Here to talk to us about turning a passion into a business is Juliet Hahn, consultant and speaker. Good morning, Juliet.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great.
So, why do you think so many people are scared to take that next step from turning a passion into a business?
They are afraid of failure and they're afraid of the unknown. I mean, that's the main thing when I talk to clients. It's about, well, what if this happens? And we really can't control the what if. You just have to take that step and go for it.
Yeah, of course.
So, Juliet, tell us about your workshop that's called Your Next Step. What do people learn within that?
Yep. So it's called Your Next Stop. And what it is really, it dives into what makes you tick. So a lot of people, when they're feeling stuck, they don't allow themselves to dream. They don't let themselves think of what they want their life to be. So we really dive into that. I have my clients write out what their dream life would look like with no limitations. So no money, no, where you're living. And then we also talk about, routines and how to actually find that passion. It's something that you can talk about at the dinner party, at, in line at the grocery store. A passion is something that you really can talk about all day long, and to find that, hone in on it, and then take those skills to create a business with it.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of storytelling for your business or brand?
Yes. So that is one of my favorite things to talk about, because stories connect people. And the more you connect people, the more opportunities they're going to be out there that are going to come into your pathway. So it's really important for you to know what your story is. A lot of times on my podcast, what I do is when I'm talking to people that have followed a passion, we dive back into their childhood. And a lot of times we're connecting the dots and they don't realize, oh my gosh, that is what happened. And that kind of made that memory a really positive memory. So it could have been that your father was a professor, but he had a side hustle, and you saw how his energy was when he was a professor, and you saw his energy when he did the side hustle, and you happened to go and be an entrepreneur. And it really is the connection there. So, and to find your brand, you need to know what your story is. You need to go back and really write it down. So that's what I tell my clients. What you need to do is you need to kind of voice text, if that's what you need to do. You can leave yourself a voice memo, but write down those little memories that you have all through your life, and you're going to connect to the dots there. And the more you can tell your story and share your story, the more people you're going to connect with, and the more people are going to be interested in what you're doing. And that's when kind of the doors open up, because we all have a path, right? We all have a path, whether you believe in God or the universe. There's something out there for us. We just have to be aware of it.
So, Juliet, you had mentioned your podcast, which has the same name as your program, Your Next Stop. What other kind of little gems are folks going to take away from that podcast?
Yes, it's a lot of inspiration. I mean, after each podcast, I will get certain people just saying to me, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it." A lot of it is someone, and it's mostly women, but I do talk to men as well. And it's where they had that feeling, whether they stayed at home with their children or they went. They had a corporate job, but they always felt like they weren't doing what they were meant to do. And it's really cool to watch it unfold, when all of a sudden they realize, you know what, I'm not happy anymore. I need to make that change. And then when they make that change, what opens up, it's just amazing. So it's a lot of inspiration. There's a lot of laughs. I mean, some of it is, some deep stories, some darker stories, but a lot of it's pretty, just motivational and entertaining.
Yeah. So the Super Bowl is next weekend, and on Your Next Stop, you do a lot with NFL spouses. So how did that all come to be, and what is it that you discuss?
Yeah, so I interviewed Cynthia Zordich when I first started my podcast, and she is an NFL spouse. Michael Zordich played in the league for 12 years, and she always was doing really cool things behind the scenes. She was following a passion and turning it into a business. So I wanted her to unfold that. And when we were doing the interview, a lot of things came up for me, thinking of when my boys or my daughter, my husband, because we're big sports fans, they talk about a player being traded. And all of a sudden it clicked in my head, like, what about their spouse or their partner and their children? How does that lay out? So I got very curious. I'm a very curious person. So when I am doing my interviews, it's really a conversation. And I come up with questions that maybe not everyone does, because I just want to know. I just want to know more about the person. So Cynthia and I actually decided to partner, and we are doing a program called YNS Live, like Your Next Stop Live, with NFL Thread. And we have that on an app called Fireside, which is Mark Cuban and Fallon Fatim's app. And so that's where we broadcast live, and we interview the women of the NFL, the spouses of the NFL, and really just about what they're doing. So when they go to the Super Bowl, they have all these events. So they have an event on Thursday, which is a luncheon. So that's the NFL Thread Luncheon. And I'm going to be broadcasting live the podcast there, because I want to know what they're doing there. All of these women have, so many things that they're doing, so many lives that they've touched, and so many people that they're changing with their charities, and just things that they're doing that a lot of us don't think about and we don't know. So I wanted to highlight that. And then Friday, there's a fashion show that's supporting Holly Rod, which is Holly Robinson Pete's charity, which is for autism and Parkinson's, and all the proceeds go to her charity. So every year when they go to the Super Bowl, these women with Off the Field Wives Association, which is their 501(c), is doing this. They work all year, and all those proceeds go to a charity that is a local charity of that city where the Super Bowl is. So I want to ask them, hey, what are you doing here? What are you doing behind the scenes? Like, give us a little information. So that's really what sparked the whole our whole season with YNS Live with NFL Thread.
Juliet,
I love that.
I was just going to say,
Thank
I
you.
love that because you're 100% right. It's not something you think a lot about. Juliet, before we let you go, one more question for you. And just, for somebody who's watching right now, who, maybe has that passion or that side hustle and they would love for it to be a business, but they're just not sure it can work. What's one thing they can do today or this weekend to maybe push themselves or take that next step a little closer to making that dream a reality?
So ask questions. This is where a lot of people don't ask enough questions because they're afraid of someone being like, who are you to write a book or who are you to start that business? And that's where you're holding yourself back. So if you just start asking questions, doing a little market research, you could do it, on Google. A lot of people get nervous because they're like, well, I have this idea. I don't want someone else to take it. But if you just start, asking curious questions, you're going to hear and see what people perk up and if it's something that is viable. Also writing things down, or I do a lot of voice texting. I'm dyslexic, so writing things down is a little bit more like cumbersome for me. It makes me a little bit more tired. So I use my voice memo all the time, and it just literally just gets everything that's in my head out, and then I kind of take those actions items. So really, it's asking those questions and finding the people that would be your target market if they're interested in what your idea is.
Love that.
Juliet Hahn, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Juliet.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Kara. Well, I guess that just wraps it up here on the New Jersey Morning Show Home Edition. I like kind of throwing it back old school, and it's nice that I'm like 40 pounds lighter than last time.
Well, you don't have Liana, literally sitting in your lap and on it. So.
Yeah, no, I was talking about the,
being
pregnant. And,
I know. I remember you had to,
like as I'm sitting here, I'm
way
like
back.
sweating, This was a lot more fun.
No, this was good. And I'll tell you what, we had a fun, fiery show for an icy day. So I think that was good. We had a lot of with big guests, great guests, lots of good information today. I enjoyed today's show for sure.
Lots of controversy too. Ian Smith, he's a little bit of a polarizing figure. The Brian Flores thing, very polarizing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And as always, we want to hear from you guys, our viewers. What do you think on any of those topics? Hit us up again, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's all at NJ Morning Show. And we thank you as always for watching. Have yourself a great weekend. Thanks again.